In this episode, I will be speaking with my colleague Bill about that crucially important word that begins with M, metrics. Their importance cannot be overstated, as their selection, collection, analysis, and resulting decisions impact the entire scope of pharmaceutical manufacturing operations, especially quality management review. We will discuss considerations for pharma sites to effectively select and use metrics to inform decision-making for ensuring optimized process performance, product quality, and the suitability of the quality management system. We will also discuss aspects to avoid and best practices to strive towards in pharma metrics.
Well, I recommend first that the organizations start by looking at themselves holistically to determine what is important to them. This should be determined by looking at their quality objectives first to ensure that they're aligned with the quality policy and determine what performance indicators can be used to measure their success against those goals. In addition, the organization should also look at methods to assess the effectiveness of their quality management system. They should be looking at KPIs that can measure compliance to GMPs, such as complaints, deviations, internal audits, external audits, supplier performance, to name a few. Another recommendation I have is to also look at the established guidance provided by the FDA for quality metrics, to align with them as part of their ongoing quality metrics reporting program, which, although currently voluntary, helps an organization align with the regulatory agency on how they monitor companies for risks related to quality and manufacturing. Just an example of some areas they look at are manufacturing process performance, the effectiveness of their pharmaceutical quality system, as well as laboratory performance and supply chain robustness.
Of course, that regulatory aspect is always going to be very important for manufacturers to keep in mind. And then when we talk about how a site is managing their quality management review program, what factors in metric selection can best support a site's quality management review program?
Like I said before, the metrics have to be appropriate for your organization. So if you're looking at a high level, a corporate organization, such as a corporate quality group, they're going to have different metrics to look at based on their roles and responsibilities and oversight within the overall organization. Whereas if you're looking at the local level, at the site level, they're going to be looking at different metrics based on, what they're responsible for. However, I do want to point out there should be a cascading effect. So, for instance, the corporate level metrics would have an influence on the local level metrics that are being forwarded to them to make sure that they're maintaining applicable targets. And also, as always, there should always be a review aligned with the quality objectives and the goals established by corporate quality.
Of course, corporate quality is always going to be the umbrella that covers everything else that the sites are doing. But, Bill, if sites have already implemented the fundamentals of metric selection and they don't have any issues there, what steps can they then take to optimize the selection process for enhanced quality?
My response to that is that the focus should always be on continual improvement. Therefore, not all metrics need to be reviewed by senior management on a continual basis. If the process is in a state of control, their efforts really should be refocused on other areas where improvement may be needed. This can be done looking at trending, repeat occurrences for quality events. A great tool to use is the quality risk management. This will help an organization choose the appropriate metrics for the best bang for the buck, so to speak, ensuring resources and attention can be applied to critical areas. But I also recommend an organization looking at SMART guidance for setting their metrics. This is just ensuring that performance indicators are specific, measurable, agreed upon, realistic, and time-bound. I see all too often organizations setting their metrics that don't meet this criteria and thus making them non-optimized or non-useful.
Of course, yes, that SMART guidance piece is especially important as sites consider how they can best optimize the selection process for enhanced quality. But then, of course, once a site selects their metrics, the collection and analysis process becomes important. Often, sites can run into the issue of collecting metric data just for the sake of collection itself and have difficulty utilizing analytic methods to capture useful information from that raw collected data and make informed decisions accordingly. How can sites avoid these pitfalls?
I agree wholeheartedly. This is a very critical part of the process. And many times organizations look at this as merely just a check the box action without really giving much thought or effort into how that data is collected and how it's analyzed. For example, with data collection, this tends to be a pool process where the metrics data is pulled from various systems and compiled onto an Excel spreadsheet or similar format for analysis. This process can be very time consuming and cumbersome, frankly inefficient, and can really lose the value if the right data is not collected or the data is not current. And many times, unfortunately, it results in errors due to processing based on its manual collection nature. So I recommend a push process where the data collection is automatically populated into a centralized system to facilitate its review. And really, if necessary, you can further dissect and drill down deeper into that data if needed. Further, I also recommend the use of dashboards for real-time data evaluation. This can be beneficial to senior management by providing agility to respond in real time to any issues, as they see fit, as they unfold, and further to obviously mitigate worsening of an event and do damage control to prevent further issues. In regards to data analysis, I often see the issue with companies that collect the data but really don't know how to effectively analyze the data. Again, all too often, we're just reporting the total numbers without really any context. We're not comparing that data to historical data to see trends, and we're not using rates to determine when the process is out of control. My recommendation is to the organization to apply appropriate statistical tools to help them analyze that data, such as control charts that establish thresholds based on percent RST that help determine negative trends or detect out of control or non-random conditions. Using these statistical quality control methods can also help the organization set up alert limits that really can assist them in identifying trends before they become a problem.
Of course, that last part especially is crucial for sites to be able to do. Then zooming out a little bit, Bill, looking at the big picture, once sites have these tools, they have these processes, and they're implementing them, how can sites and how should sites evaluate or reevaluate the suitability of their metric collection and analysis processes? How can they truly excel in this area?
I recommend site uses quality risk management, not just as part of the initial setup of metrics, but also continuing throughout their QMR process. For example, as metrics evolve, the site should be seeing improvement against the performance indicators, which should incur reevaluation of targets or even altogether new metrics to measure or even to refocus their efforts for improvement. I also want to remind you about the SMART guidance for setting goals. Per this guidance, they require metrics to be attainable, to be realistic, and time-bound. So once those targets are met, it's okay to readjust the QMR focus on other areas that require attention.
Excellent points. Thank you. And then when we come to that final piece in metrics, the decision making, once the selection of metrics is done, collection and analysis is done, finally we're making decisions based on all of that data. How should sites put their best foot forward for this step that has the most influence on how the site operates?
That's a good point. Informed decision-making process is really the most critical part of that process. This is where leadership determines what actions need to be taken, what improvements are needed to address, these identified issues or trends, allocation of resources, for example, or maybe what financial investments are needed to address an issue. This is why it's this is why it's also very important that we have the involvement from leadership for all functions, to make sure educated decisions are made, and that we get feedback and support from all the groups to address quality issues. And also, just really, I want to focus one more thing, Sarah, is at the end of the day, the real goal of the QMR process is for senior management to come up with conclusions, on the effectiveness of the quality management system. It's important for them to determine, what do they need to do? What do they need to act on to really ensure the success of the organization?
Right. Of course. Thank you, Bill, for your insight on metrics within pharma manufacturing sites. Their criticality definitely lies in all aspects of their use, not only from selection, but to collection and analysis, and then leading up to that final and most important piece, informed decision making. Thanks everyone for listening, and if you found today's episode valuable, other episodes and our QMM articles can be accessed on the Shabas Solutions website, where you can also further explore our QMM services. Be sure to sign up for our newsletter and follow Shabas Solutions on LinkedIn to be notified of future episodes and industry updates.